Secondly, with regard to your resignation from EPW, would it be possible to comment on the stand taken by Samisha Trust and your resignation from EPW?
I'll answer the question about the 2G spectrum. I had mentioned this. In my opinion, it's not the Supreme Court. It is a special CBI judge, Justice O.P. Saini, who has acquitted all the 17 persons who are accused. The matter is supposed to now go up to the higher court. First to the High Court and maybe then to the Supreme Court. It has already taken about 12 years and I don't know how long it will take. In my opinion, the judge, Judge Saini, has taken a very narrow, legalistic view of the evidence. I think the evidence could have been presented better, and I think, in my opinion, there are three. One is the policy, the other is the procedure, and finally the criminality. I can criticize the judge's view on all three counts. On the procedure count, I think the whole first come first serve system was illegal. That's my view. Whether the new public prosecutor who has replaced Shri Anand Grover, he is the additional Solicitor General, Mr. Tushar Mehta, what position he will take, I don't know. The second point is the procedure. I think you have a cut-off date, 30th of September, and you suddenly say it's going to be 20th of September, but you announce it only 2 months later. 2.5 months, almost 2.5 months, or 2 months and a few weeks later. And then you specify the terms and conditions. To me, this is also illegal. You can't just change the rules suddenly. And in the process, you favored 122 individual companies and entities who were given the licenses. And the Supreme Court cancelled all of it. Then you had to have another set of options. Finally, this whole issue of criminality. You have a company called Kusigaon Fruits and Vegetables, which is owned by the brother, or one of the promoters is the brother of a promoter of DB Realty, which has again got this spectrum license. This company gives a loan to a company called Kalaina TV, in which Kanimoi, mother-in-law, is one of the shareholders. Stepmother is one of the shareholders. And this loan is given and the loan is returned. And Kanimoi was a director for a short period of time. You are saying there is no association between a company which is in fruits and vegetables in Maharashtra to give a loan to a television company in Tamil Nadu, which happens to be a television channel which is, its information is very, very much pro-DMK, and you think there's no association. I can go on and on, sir. Maybe others will get bored, but I could tell you how this whole deal was structured. And to me, there's a lot many questions that have remained unanswered. Sir, about my own resignation from the EPW, I have already spoken a lot on the subject. Mr. Venu is here. He had done a long interview with me. Let me summarize the points. There was an article on Adani Power, and this article was reprinted, republished by The Wire. There was a legal notice that came from the lawyer representing Adani Power. I engaged the services of a lawyer to respond to the notice. The notice also mentions Samisha Trust, which are the trustees, that they are the owners of the economic and political entity. What was described as an act of grave impropriety on my part was that I did not seek the prior permission of the trust while responding to the legal notice. So I apologized for it. I said this is a procedural lapse in my opinion. But they said it's an act of grave impropriety. And then they said they are appointing a co-editor. Then they said they had lost their faith in me as an editor. Then they said you can't write any article under your own name. And they said pull down this article immediately and do not leave the room until this article has been pulled down. So I think a situation was created where no self-respecting individual could have continued. So I asked for a piece of paper. I wrote my resignation and I said, please accept my resignation with immediate effect. Later on, some of my friends said you should not have resigned. You should have let them sack you. That way you would have got 6 months salary and perquisites. Anyway, after all this happened, to my surprise, I thought I was a naive fool. I thought I was doing my job. There were a few hundreds of public intellectuals, scholars, activists who came out in my support. I was astonished. There were 2 Nobel laureates, Amartya Sen, Angus Deaton. There was Professor Noam Chomsky of the US. All of them said what had been done should not have happened. So in a sense, all I can say is that I thought I was doing my job. The esteemed trustees of the Samiksha Trust have a different opinion. They are entitled to their opinion. At that time there was no case. It was just a lawyer's notice. Subsequently they moved the court. At the civil court at Bhuj, this case was against the wire, against me, against the co-authors. The judge said remove 1 sentence and 1 word, which the wire has done. Now they moved the criminal defamation case against me and a new case in Ahmedabad. Time will tell, sir, what happens or not. In the first round, we've won the injunction. Venu will be able to tell you much more when you listen to him. He will be also speaking. So the first round, I see that as a victory. Let's see what happens after that.
That you have made about this subject and how you were going about it. Were there any objections on the part of the so-called conventional crony capitalists in completing it, etc.? We wanted to know more about the document. Okay. That's not familiar. You printed the things are familiar.
All right. So most of my documentary films are available in the public domain, and if you go to YouTube, you will be able to find it. If you go to my own website, you will find the links to that. The one documentary on Bellary is available here, sir. I haven't, for various reasons, put it up. But I must tell you the way I am trying to move ahead. It's called crowdfunding. In the case of the film that I made called Blood and Iron, I raised about 8 lakhs of rupees in the form of small donations from large numbers of people. I think that's the way I've moved. Maybe I will continue in this, along this path, to seek the support of large numbers of people. Even if they give small donations, I'll be very happy. The other films that I've made are all in the public domain. Many of them have been financed and supported by a body called the Public Service Broadcasting Trust. All of these are available on YouTube. You can have a look at them. I want to mention one film which was made with the financial support of Greenpeace India. It was called Coal Curse, and the subtitle is The Political Economy of Coal-Based Energy in India. And it looks at one particular region called Singrauli, but it talks about the bigger problem of Coalgate and others. That also is available on YouTube. There's a Hindi version of the film called Koila Ya Kala Shah. Why am I mentioning this film? I've made about 15 odd films, but you can get this one on the YouTube. It's because after this film was made, and mind you, this was when the Manmohan Singh government was there, the Intelligence Bureau, they put out a report against various non-government organizations and civil society organizations, suggesting that these civil society organizations were harming or hurting the economic development of India. So I've been honored and privileged. My name is in that list. So I think I should put on a t-shirt saying, I am anti-national. And then in small type saying, but pro-people. So, you know, this is what is happening today. Anybody who is disagree with becomes anti-national. So, you're most welcome, sir, to have a look at these documentary films. I was very honored when Blood and Iron was shown in Thiruvananthapuram some years ago, and there was a very positive response, I got.
My question is related to what he asked. Okay. So I wanted to know, all your other films are on certain issues, or
Okay.
Whereas I didn't know you made this film on Mahendra Karma. So I wanted to know why you chose that subject and why you took the personality-centric approach.
Okay. That's one film, you're right, which is not available on YouTube. I haven't put it up yet. Maybe I will. NDTV has shown it. Mahendra Karma was an unusual person. He was a leader of the tribals, and he belonged to the Congress party. And at a time when the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, was in power in Chhattisgarh, Mahendra Karma was one of the important leaders who started a movement called Salva Judo, which was meant to be a sort of a quote-unquote people's resistance to the Naxalites and the Maoists. But I believe that this was actually supported by the government and by the police. So this was what you would describe in English as a vigilante army. Then the Supreme Court said that you cannot have Salva Judo. You cannot have, they were called SPOs, Special Police Officers. They said, no, you can't have Special Police Officers. The Supreme Court said you can't. So, if the government, if the state government cannot abdicate its responsibility of enforce law and order, so you have the paramilitary force, you have CRPF and BSF, and you have the state government, police. So, what had happened was in 2013, Mahendra Karma, together with a large number of political leaders, including Vidyacharan Shukla, VC Shukla of the Congress party, they were killed in what was perhaps the biggest ever ambush by the Naxalites and the Maoists. While after this happened, I realized that I was one of the few people who had actually interviewed Mahendra Karma. And I had done a long interview with him because I was trying to understand this whole phenomenon of left-wing extremism or Maoism in Chhattisgarh, which is like the center of India, it's like the heart of India, and trying to link it with the crony capitalism that's happening, the mining groups, the big business houses that were engaged in them. So that's why I sought to link the two, that I looked at one man who was a prominent personality, his death, as part of a bigger narrative of left-wing extremism in Chhattisgarh and linking that with the resource curse in that area.
In your talk, you have emphasized the fact that the crony capitalism and the state is looting the natural resources and how people lose their power over natural resources, and also they convert all these natural resources into financial capitalism. So my question is, what's the way out? We know that in India we have Panchayat system and also PISA Act is being implemented, but in very few places, maybe especially a place like Mega and in Gadchiroli district, people could realize their right over the resource of land. But in other part of the country, people are still struggling. So in your opinion, what's the way out to people or the community to have the power of the governments?
Okay, that's a very good question you have asked. I want to draw some examples of what happened in different parts of the world. The first question is, why hasn't Mr. Modi gone to Gachibowli? Mr. Manmohan Singh said that this problem of Maoism and Naxalism is India's biggest internal security threat. Dr. Manmohan Singh said it more than once. But during the 10 years he was Prime Minister, why did he not go to Dantewada even once? Why did he not go to Gadchiroli even once? If indeed it is India's biggest national security, internal security problem, why aren't you going there? That's one point. First, let me tell you, in different parts of the world, in different countries in Africa, in different countries in Latin America, there have been some civil society movements which have ensured that mining is done in not just an ecologically sustainable manner. That means you do least damage to the environment, and whatever damage you do in the environment, you reforest it. But most importantly, that the benefits of those natural resources go to the local communities. That the local communities become the stakeholders. Today we have a Mines Act, which is being sought to be amended. Today we have the Supreme Court cancelling mining leases in Orissa, in Goa. Why do we have to wait for the Supreme Court to intervene? Is the Supreme Court the only way out? The way forward is for civil society organizations, ordinary organizations to come together. Let me tell you, this problem is a problem which is there in many parts of the world, particularly in what we call the South, the Southern Hemisphere. If you read people like Stiglitz and others, they will talk to you about Sierra Leone and Liberia. This phrase, resource curse, was first coined by an American economist called Auty, Richard Auty, A-U-T-Y. He was an economist. And he says, in these areas which are rich with mineral resources, this extractive industries, they become predatory capitalism. You know, I can actually read out to you what a judge of the Supreme Court said, that this is the worst form of capitalism. It's like a predator, because it's extracting resources and giving nothing in return. Take Liberia. They had an authoritarian ruler called Charles Taylor. He was severely indicted by the International Court of Justice. He's the same man. You know why he became famous? There's a well-known African-American model called Naomi Campbell. He gifted her a diamond that was the size of a golf ball. In Sierra Leone, people have died. There have been civil wars because of diamonds. There's an entire film that has been made called Blood Diamonds. It was a Hollywood film. There have been cover stories in leading American papers, including Time magazine, on called Blood Diamonds. In India, we have seen different forms of this. And if ordinary citizens and civil society and people don't come together, then we are going to continue to see this kind of resource curse and cronyism. So, in my opinion, to answer your question, there are laws of the land. These laws are not properly implemented. That's one part of the story. So there are central government laws, there are state government laws. There are major minerals, there are minor minerals. But it is not merely a question of changing the law. Yes, I agree with you, the law also needs to be strengthened and changed. The comments have been invited to the new mining rules by the government. All of you should go through it, read it, and given, I think the time is up, but you can still make representations. Because it is not a question of benefiting today's generation, it's a question of benefiting future generations, what we call intergenerational equity. Because these resources do not belong to you alone, they belong to your children and their children. So that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is even the laws that exist, they have to be implemented. Look what Gali Janardhan Reddy did. It is not I. It is Justice Santosh Hegde's report. You read it and they'll tell you every law, Air Act, Water Act, Customs Duty, Excise Duty, sales tax, every single law that existed, motor vehicle rules were all flouted. So we have to ensure that the administration becomes more responsive. So the way forward, sir, is to tell people that this is your resource, it's your property, doesn't belong to the government. You have to be responsible and you have to come together to protest against those people who are looting your property, your wealth.
So you spoke about the political and corporate nexus. Can you please also elaborate on this SLAPP? Like you authored a book, I suppose, with the Supreme Court. Can you please talk about that? Thank you.
SLAPP is Strategic Litigation Against Public Participation. It is, you are using, see, it is your right, a fundamental right, to have free expression, so long as you are within the purview of the law. I'll tell you, I'll go step by step. Article 19(1)(a). Then you have Article 19(2), which says there are reasonable restrictions on the right to free expression. What is reasonable? Who decides what is reasonable? Is it the mafia gang? Is it your local police officer? Is it somebody who doesn't like you? Or is it the Inspector General of Police? Is it the Chief Justice of India? So the disputes over the right to free expression have all centered around how you interpret 19(2). That is, what is a reasonable restriction on the right to free speech? So one of them is defamation. That means one of the restrictions is you can't say something which will promote enmity among two communities. You can't say something which will spoil your friendly relations with another country. And you cannot say anything that is considered to be defamatory, libelous. Now, India is among the few countries in the world, certainly among the few large countries in the world, certainly among the few countries in the world which calls itself a democracy, where defamation is both a civil offence and a criminal offence. The present Chief Justice of India, Justice Deepak Mishra, he headed a bench which gave a long ruling which upheld criminal defamation. Many of us are unhappy with that judgment, but essentially it says that the person's right to her or his reputation and the person's right to free speech have to be balanced. Almost on par, he's put it. I don't think they're on par. I believe we should decriminalize defamation. That's the first point. That's my personal view. Coming to SLAPS, Strategic Litigation Against Public Participation. The whole idea is, see, lawyers are expensive. These cases are put up in different parts. I may be in Delhi, but I'm asked to go to Bhuj and Mundra in Gujarat. Venu is based in Delhi, but he's been asked to appear in Ahmedabad one day and Kohima another location. Why? So the whole idea is to make you spend money in the hope of bankrupting you. So lawyers are expensive, and also travel is expensive, and the whole process of justice is quite slow. Mr. Uday Kumar is here, he knows how many cases have been filed, and the whole idea is to justice, because it's a fundamental right to sue. How this is misused, because even if you say, I am not harassed, I am not intimidated, I'll fight you out. I'm a rich guy, I'll spend lakhs of rupees. Do your best. I'll win the case, even if it is after 5 years, even after I'm dead and gone. My son can get the benefit when costs are paid. I can argue that. But most people don't have that privilege. The whole idea behind a SLAP, and this is seen across the world, is to have what is called a chilling effect. That means you are not scared, But I'm going to tell you, don't mess around with me, because then I can file a suit against you, I can harass you. It may be what you describe as a frivolous suit, but by the time you go through the entire process, they are trying to bankrupt you, they're trying to harass you, they're trying to divert your attention, they're trying to stop you from doing other work. This is how slap suits work. So that book that I've co-authored, we have documented about 12-15 instances. This Australian journalist Hamish MacDonald versus the late Dhirubhai Ambani, Tamal Bandyopadhyay journalist versus Subrato Roy Sahara. There are many, many interesting cases. For the first time, Sucheta Dalal of Money Live, she's not only won a case against National Stock Exchange, but the court has directed the National Stock Exchange to pay money to a charitable cause, that is a public hospital. This is the first time it's happened, the Bombay High Court. So there are a lot of developments that are happening. All I'm trying to say is the long arm of the law can be very, very long. The proverbial wheels of justice, which grind slowly, can grind very, very slowly, excruciatingly slowly. So this is how people take benefits by, in my opinion, misusing the law. If there's any other question, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
you have talked about the ownership of land. And what is the, we know the Marxist organizations in India is hesitated to talk about the private property abolition. You know, in Keshwanath Bharati case, the Supreme Court had empowered the central government to make restrictions on the right to property. So what is the duty of the Marxist organizations to take a debate on this private property ownership? You know, the private property is the backbone of capitalism. So what do you think? What is the duty of Marxist organizations?
It's a very difficult question you've asked, and very honestly, I don't think I'm capable or competent to give you an answer. The Keshwananda Bharati case, to the best of my understanding, is saying that you can't have a law which changes the basic character of the Constitution. The Land Acquisition Act, which was more than 100 years old, which was enacted during the British, by the British, the colonial government, it was amended in 2013. You have an act called the LARR, which not only looks at land acquisition, looks at relief, rehabilitation and compensation. In December 2014, an attempt was made to change these laws and, in my opinion, dilute the act. Even if you argue that the December 2013 LARR Act was weak or had a lot of flaws, nevertheless it's important to know that it had complete consensus, political consensus, including from the Bharatiya Janata Party, including from the left. Then when the Narendra Modi government tried to, what many of us believe, dilute this act in December 2013, it could not. They had one ordinance, they had another ordinance, they had a third re-promulgation of the ordinance. There was a parliamentary committee set up under Mr. S.S. Ahluwalia, but they couldn't amend the law. Now the way the Supreme Court has interpreted the law has raised a lot of concerns. So I think whether it's a Marxist organization or any organization, if it is important first to uphold the law, to ensure the law as it exists is properly upheld. How were they trying to dilute the act? Firstly was the question of social impact assessment, which is that before the government acquires land or gives permission to change the pattern of the land use from, say, agriculture to non-agriculture, it should have a proper assessment of who's going to benefit and who's going to lose. And that means not just the owners of the land, but those whose livelihoods depend on that land. So it's like a cost-benefit analysis. It was called the social impact assessment. Now that itself has a lot of problems. What we say, there should be Jan Sunwais, public hearings, but those are not held or properly conducted. But that's one part of the story. Then comes the compensation. You said you're going to give 4 times the circle value. Now, what if the circle value is artificially depressed? As everybody knows, most of the black money transactions in this country concern land and property. Because you want to artificially not pay the stamp duty, so you value it at 1/4 the actual market value. So even if you get 4 times the value, you're getting actually only the value. It's not 4 times the market value. So what is the genuine market value? 3, the issue of public purpose. What is public purpose? Who decides whether this land is being used for a public purpose? Hospital, school. So this is what the existing law says. I think it's first important for all organizations to ensure that the law is implemented. Then will come the question of how do you change the law, how do you amend the law. So my view is that much has to be done. Keep in mind today, sir, that like the Congress Party, the Marxists are weaker today in India than ever before in the history of independent India since 15th of August 1947. The parliamentary left, which peaked at 61 MPs in the Lok Sabha in 2004, today has 12 MPs. 8 belong to the CPIM. I'm a Bengali. After 34 years, the Marxists in Bengal were thrown out, voted out of power. Other than Kerala, their hope is Tripura. Keep in mind that the Marxists in parliamentary left in India is today weaker than it's ever before. So is the Congress Party. Remember that too. The Congress Party's vote share has never come down below 20%. In 2014, it was 19.5%. The number of seats belonging to the Congress Party in the Lok Sabha had never come down. It is below 10% today. You have 543 elected members in the Lok Sabha. You have 44 MPs belonging to the Congress. So I think today it's time to all progressive forces to come together. I have my personal views. I can express them all night, but that may not be relevant. You tell me, do you remember why the CPI and the CPM were formed? Why they became 2 political parties? Okay, very good, you remember. How relevant is it today? You tell me. Just one question. Thank you very much.